Now, this illustration deals with connection of the grounding and bonding equipment means in accordance with NEC 250.8. Now, the note, I always like to review the note first, and hopefully you will do the same when reviewing illustrations. But notice the connection devices or fittings that depend solely on solder shall not be used, So that is a main rule that we want to make sure that we always enforce, that we don't depend solely on solder to make this type of connection. Now, notice in the service equipment, you may have a screw that bonds that grounded bar, that's earth grounded, to the enclosure. Then a conductor may be added to supplement it. Some electricians like to do that, especially a lot of the older electricians would do this at times. Now, notice that the grounded conductor that's coming in on the supply side there is connected to the bar that is bonded to the enclosure and earth grounded, as you see in the illustration. Then all equipment grounds and neutrals will connect to that bar. So a lot of times electricians just like to make sure that we supplement the green-headed screw in many cases of newer equipment has a supplement to it. But you want to make sure that it's full size, such as say you had 4-aught conductors terminating to a 225 amp main in that panel board. Then, as we've previously stated, that supply, there's no overcurrent device ahead of those conductors from the transformer to where they terminate to that main. So we would need a number 2 per table 250.102 C as in car 1. Based upon the 4-aught conductors, we need number 2. Well, everything in that panel board pertaining to grounding would be number 2. The only thing that could change is if the grounding electrode conductor just connected to a concrete encased electrode, which it would be at least number 4. A ground ring maybe number 2. A driven rod number 6. But if that grounding electrode conductor terminated and connected to a metal water pipe or to structural steel that is considered an electrode in accordance with 250.52, then table 250.66 would size it and it'd be number 2. So you would keep that in mind. But everything else inside there, when I say everything else, your grounding conductors, your bonding conductors, they're all considered supply side because there's no overcurrent device ahead of the conductors. So as you see there, 250.28 D as in dog and table 250.102 C1 would size these conductors and basically let you know how they would terminate, how they'd connect to ground, and so forth. So keep that in mind. Now, getting back to any type of connection that we make with a screw or a bolt or anything like that is outlined to the right. And you have an arrow pointing to that connection. That might be a listed pressure type connector, a terminal bar, which you see, pressure connectors listed as grounding and bonding equipment, exothermic welding process, which we used to call the old CAD weld, machine tools. We could use a machine screw type fastener that engage not less than 2 threads or secured with a nut. Next, a threaded forming machine screw that engages not less than 2 threads in the enclosure. The next bullet, connections that are part of a listed assembly. And then other listed means that the authority having jurisdiction will accept in accordance with 90.4 and meeting 250.8A. That's what this illustration 16-12 is illustrating. Supply side grounding and bonding, load side bonding and grounding. And just as a repetitious summary here, supply side grounding and bonding basically means there's no overcurrent device ahead of your conductors. Load side grounding and bonding is based upon the overcurrent device because you have an overcurrent device ahead of the conductors supplying the equipment. Now, basically, this is what figure 16-12 is illustrating.